On everybody, Eddie Daniels here with another video. So today's video we're gonna do a Zoom call. I'm gonna do a Zoom call with a couple of buddies of mine talking about a sensitive topic. That topic, I'm not gonna give you that topic just now. We're gonna wait until I bring these fellas on. They're gonna introduce themselves and then we're gonna get right into it. So I brought you fellas on today, strictly because I had a topic that I wanted to address. Well, we all had this topic. Briefly, we talked about it really quick. So I
Exactly.
wanted to bring it full circle, and I wanted to have a good crew to talk about this topic. Before I introduce the topic, though, I want everybody to introduce themselves so everybody know who you guys are and what you do. Starting with the light-skinned person, the one that's the lightest to the darkest. Everybody's looking up. Everybody's looking up top. No, everybody's looking up top because I said the lightest person.
Yo, I'm telling you, after this weekend, I'm gonna be dark. I'm about to mow my lawn in basketball shorts. But yeah, I'm Andre Armour. I'm owner of Bullseye LLC, firearms instructor, FFL, Type 07, SOT dealer, gun manufacturer.
Man, do everything, yo. Just don't say porn star.
Right.
Anyways, hit them. Who the next lightest one?
I guess that would be me.
That's definitely you, bro.
Shut up. My name is Christopher Elliott. I go by The Real Frii. I'm an author, actor, poet. I run the podcast out of a Freestyle Gospel Studio A here in New Haven, Connecticut, where we executive produce the Free Lunch podcast. And I also, to where it's any relevance to today's topic, former New Haven police officer for 7 years.
Yes, sir. And the darkest one in the room.
You're an idiot.
Listen, you got to make light of it because this topic is not real light. So you got to start off with a low light.
For sure.
All right.
So my name is Joe Dorellis, owner, instructor of A.S.M.S Firearms Training. Been instructing since August of 2020. Prior to that, in terms of my background, I'm a law enforcement officer in the state of Connecticut. Been so for approximately 8 years now.
Nice. All right, so now that we got that out the way, this topic is a serious topic, as we all know. And this topic is going to be based off of this New York situation that we just experienced. What's the actual, what is it?
Buffalo.
I've never been there before. So yeah, Buffalo, New York, tragic
Tom's
incident.
grocery store.
So I wanted to address this situation coming from a couple of different standpoints. Us being instructors and PD and all this different type of stuff. I felt like us also being people of color, that this would be a great topic for us to touch on and give our take on it. So Frii, from a officer's standpoint, I know that you've been doing that for quite some time. You don't do it anymore, but from that standpoint, give me your take on this thing. And anybody could chime in when you feel free, man. Because right,
I think for you know, I don't think I could. And was it Joe?
Joe.
I'm reading. Yeah, I don't know if Joe would disagree with me on this point, him being the other officer on the call, but I don't think I could separate an approach or a take on this in the way that you posed the question, Eddie. Like so I don't think I could say, hey, so Frii, from an officer's standpoint, what do you think of it? Like I think me as an officer, just as me as a black man, me as a father, me, my take would be all the same. This is absolutely atrocious. It's been things not as atrocious as this that I've experienced on the street level in the the duties as a police officer, where I've been at places or at scenes and the tragedy rises to the occasion where my humanity or my blackness causes me to literally, at times, eyes swell up and tears in my eyes in full uniform. Like, because there's certain atrocities that you cannot separate your humanity from them. You cannot just stand. There's just no separate. I feel if you're a real human being, you're not a robot. Like some people might think, whether you're a correction officer or law enforcement officer, you put on that badge and that gun and go out to do your job. You don't become a robot. You know what I mean? If you're a real human being, at least, or not some dirtbag, cop. So you, as a police officer, my take is just the same as a Black man, as a father of 4 kids, 1 on the way, is pain, heartache. The minute I saw this, standing in the laundry room, at the laundromat with my wife on the TV screen, the laundromat was the first time I saw this. And in the laundromat, I'm trying to compose myself to finish laundry with my wife. And I'm pacing now the laundromat with, again, the ball in my throat and eyes swelling up as I'm constantly watching this thing that the laundromat is blasting on the TV screen. I cannot ignore it.
So did y'all see it? Did y'all, Dre and Joe, did y'all actually see the footage?
I only saw what was being circulated on social media and what was being circulated on the various news outlets. But yeah.
So it was crazy when I seen it. I was in Vegas and I was eating dinner, and as Frii was saying, as I'm eating dinner, it pops up on every TV. Vegas, you're surrounded by TVs. So I'm like, this is popping up every TV, and I'm like, stop, let me compose. And I'm like, mass shooting, and I'm like, damn, they got us again. And when I say they got us again, I'm like, it's a battle. It's a battle in my mind. Before, what I'm preconceiving is, oh, here they come with the gun things. Here it comes with the 2A. They're going to attack on 2A. And I was like, wait, racially motivated. And then I was like, there's no sound. So I'm trying to read and go along. And that emotion starts to build up. The frustration, the infuriation. And I'm like,
go ahead, what you were saying?
Not just the infuriation of what was going on. And it's crazy because when you tune into social media outlets, people are so not inconsiderate, but not empathetic. And they're like, well, why are they mad? Because no one gets mad that gangbangers are doing it every day. And my response was, and I have to check myself sometimes on social media, because if I allow myself to speak freely, they'll end up canceling me. But my response was, gangbangers, that's part of their lifestyle. Individuals, innocent individuals at a grocery store, they're not part of that lifestyle. And what you're comparing is not equivalent. And then I just have to drop it there, because if you go back and forth, then the words change and the intellectual ability starts to kind of go out the window when I start to personalize it as far as growing up being a young Black male.
Yeah, Frii, you was about to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna just to the whole gang thing. There's a large part of that I do relate to. I do hold in the conversations I've had with individuals one-on-one, us as a culture, or those individuals in our communities that I've had the police in our community, gangbangers or whatnot, who are killing one another as well. I've spoken, to those points. That's a valid point of that in and of itself. Like, that's wrong, right? And as Black people, we need to do better getting that out of our communities to whatever extent we can or cannot. Okay. Here's the thing about what makes this just amazing and difficult for me outside of that is slightly to your point, right? Is when we're going to the grocery store, though, I've never in all of my years growing up in the inner city in New Haven, full of, violence, crime, all of that, has stories got on the news of gangbangers going into the grocery store and gunning down people. Okay, exactly. That's the difference, right? It's so there's no difference, right? If you're looking at it just pure black and white, right? Like, okay, you guys have gangbangers in your community killing one another, and then this. Okay, right. So killing is wrong either way you split it. Okay, correct. But where it starts to impact my psyche for these other facets of my day-to-day life living, like going to the grocery store, right? It's certain activities, even growing up in the inner city where we know these type of crimes or, you know, gangbanging activity occurs, right? There's certain they to an extent it's compartmentalized though, even within those communities, right? It's certain places that we know we can go to more or less in our Black communities or minority communities, wherever they are, and it's otherwise set apart, detached from this gang related activity, right?
Yeah.
Case in point, just
There's
like
a
our
code.
church communities. You know what I mean? Like again, I don't see on the news gangbangers ever running up into a church and shooting up people in the church, right? We kind of know, we kind of avoid the gangbanger activities by, you know, maybe not walking certain neighborhoods or streets late at night or a particular time of day or whatever it is, right? Not in the places where we go day to day to just do basic things, go to the post office, go to drop our kids off at school. We're not hearing about gangbangers running up in the school, shooting up our kids, right? These are things that we felt otherwise some degree of normalcy, to whatever extent us as minorities can have them in our communities, where we felt some kind of normalcy and peace outside of what we're seeing in the news happening in our community. Okay, so we know I go to the grocery store. All right, now I'm watching this thing in the freaking laundromat, bro, and I'm sitting here looking at my wife in the parking lot, and I'm going, yo, we really have to start to talk to the kids, babe, about maybe a code word we can use when we're in the freaking grocery store. We're in the grocery store. That's ridiculous, man.
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And even just the simple fact, like, you know, when I went to work, you know, we talked about it at work quite often, and a lot of the people were like, yo, you know, why is it that nobody in there had a gun and this and that? And another instructor that I know, he was supposed to actually join us tonight, but he didn't. One of the things that he touched on was, and if they did have a gun, then what? You know what I'm saying? Like, even having a gun means absolutely nothing if you don't have the proper training on how to use that. So when we started looking at different scenarios based off of that, you know, and if I'm not mistaken, out there, I don't even think they can even have firearms like we can in CT, right?
Well, that's the thing.
Let's be mindful of the fact.
I can't speak for the laws in New York as a state. You get what I'm saying? Or how it differs from New York City to the rest of New York State. But I mean, I think that's a valid point, right? Regardless of whether or not people were actually carrying, it doesn't change the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, you still would have had a result in casualties. People still would have died.
Absolutely.
Like having that firearm, especially, you know, having that firearm with little to no training, it doesn't do anything to change the fact that even if you were in that position, you probably wouldn't be able to effectively create change. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. But that was another thing. Go ahead, Dre.
The part that's so frustrating to me is the behavior, right? You have a person whose ideology at its core premises is based out of fear of something that he nor any of us on this call have control over. So you decide to annihilate a certain creed, a certain race of individuals off of a horrific ideology. I don't care if any of us was in that store with as many firearms as we want to have. Like Frii was saying, we're in a grocery store. We're not thinking someone's going to create it's a rampage. You're caught off guard. And we all talk about situational awareness, but those people putting groceries in their bag, walking out
in
the
store,
car,
you know what I'm saying,
you have
outside.
no time.
Yeah.
You have no time. And so there's no, people could say, and I'm a huge advocate in saying carry wherever you can, but myself, we talked about simulations training. I've been shot, do simulation. There's nothing that those people could have done.
Yeah.
They hurt. Besides the fact that the ideology in which this, I don't even know what to call them, this monster decided to unrelinquish his rage on a day where he wouldn't be met with force or adequate force.
Yes, and one of the things that got me was finding out that and this was I think I was watching on YouTube. It was two comedians, they were getting interviewed. And this is actually how I found out the information, because I didn't know it at first, but they said after he did that shooting, when he exited the store, that he put the gun to his head, and nobody ended up firing their weapon. He still had the armor on, he still had the gun, and they allowed him to put everything down and, you know, just cuff up, which I have absolutely nothing wrong with until you flip the coin. The PD, for some reason, when it comes to the blacks having guns, and this is a touchy subject, you could assume they have a gun, and you laying them down. You know what I'm saying? But you can know for a fact that this guy has a gun, and he done took out a bunch of people, yet he hasn't been touched. That's where I kind of feel a little touchy about the situation. Nobody ever wants anybody to get harmed and shot and killed. But at the same token, I can't hide the fact that I'm black too. You know what I'm saying?
But you know what? To that point,
and I know I was going to say this to Frii and Joe, both as a question to you guys, because your training is different than my training as a civilian, right? Eddie, you in law enforcement, but you're in DOC, so our understanding is different. When you guys approach a scene of an active shooter, and I know that for you as a city cop, and Joe, you're state cop, state trooper, and your training might be very similar and maybe different. I hear different tactics from officers all the time as far as the way they were trained. How does a black man, unarmed, continuously get killed when armed white men walk out of the same situations unscathed? That's the part that puts a knot in my gut.
So I hear you, right? And those are valid questions, and the way it's perceived is exactly how you said it, right? Especially with people in our community in our communities. You have someone like a Dylan Roof that's able to commit, you know, such horrific acts, and somehow, some way makes it out in cuffs. You get what I'm saying? Whereas a lot of people believe that your blackness, you get what I'm saying, is seen as a weapon in and of itself. At the end of the day, I can't speak for these individual situations because I wasn't there. You get what I'm saying? But I could only speak on how I would respond, or how I think I would respond if placed in that situation. So I can't even go ahead and touch on these individual cases. You get what I'm saying? Because it's tough. I know the perception, I know what it looks like. But again, I can't speak for their training. I can't speak for none of that. I can't even speak for the incident itself because, again, I wasn't there.
Yeah, facts. And I would say, like I said before, I would honestly say that handling the situation with somebody ending up in cuffs is the proper way of doing it. I wouldn't even say anything against that, because even obviously DOC is something totally different from the police, but we're trained to de-escalate the situation. And if you can leave that situation unharmed and unscraped, then you so be it. And the moment somebody up here brings it down here, you bring it down right with them. So my issue was never the fact that he ended up in cuffs. The whole problem was, how does he end up in cuffs, but then an unarmed black man who may have a gun or looks like he has a gun doesn't, on multiple occasions? That's the thing that bottles my head.
And this is why I don't know, Joe, what has been your experience with people who are your friends or family members from your community, wherever you grew up at, as you transition into law enforcement and up until this day. But this is why I've had those conversations with members of my community who I knew going into transition into law enforcement, that where I was one of those voices saying, hey, listen, if you got, you know, a decent enough record, you know, for the most, you know, part, kept your nose clean, ain't really got nothing crazy on your, you know, your record or whatever. And, you know, you're looking for a solid, you know, job with some decent pay, apply. Free
And
to apply.
that's facts, right?
Yeah.
Because
This is why we
for
need
nothing.
more people like us are best poised to police us. But what happens is we got those
Big facts.
ignorant voices that say things like, "Oh, nah, you know, Free. Oh, you a sellout now, man. Oh, dang, man, you one of the Jakes now. You a Jake now. Shut up.
I wouldn't even go as far as to say, you know, these, you know, people saying that are ignorant. They're speaking from they're speaking from their perspective, right? But in the same breath, it's just like there's a lot of work that needs to be done between our communities and law enforcement, right? That's a fact. Ain't no way around
Big
it,
facts.
right?
Big
But
facts.
but at the end of the day, there's only so much that can be done on the outside, right? You have to be willing to come in, not only educate yourselves on the laws, the policies that are set in place in terms of how it might affect you or your community members, but also go as far as having that conversation with your community members, trying to educate them, right? And these are conversations that happened every so often at the barbershop, right? It doesn't have to be like a formal setting, but even at the barbershop, you go every 2 weeks or whatever. Perfect opportunity to educate. Perfect opportunity to try to, you know, I'm not gonna say sway opinions, but plant that seed like, hey, bro, we need you in here.
But it's one of those, but it's one of those things where it for me, and these are not ignorant people, what I mean by that, but they're ignorant statements to me, because it's just like when people want to discuss or debate politics. Me, I don't care for politics. That's my personal opinion. You could, you know, feel whatever hell way you want to, you know, feel about it. I'm gonna be 40 years old next year. I don't really give a crap about people think about my opinions at this point. Okay. At the end of the day, because I know I don't care for politics, I shut my mouth regarding it. I don't freaking complain. I don't freaking, you know, whatever. When it bothers me enough, then I'll do whatever my due diligence of educating myself in that space and then making some moves to the extent whatever I can make them.
Yeah,
but absolutely. For me, it's the same thing when it comes to this. Is granted, we can't just a few of us, whatever minorities who, you know, okay, you become police officer. We're not going to change everything that needs to be fixed by that. That's not what I'm saying. No, but what I'm saying is that now when you educate yourself and you're in a position to do whatever it is you can do that. Yeah. If it's the best you can do is a few of those individuals who are able to in the physical health or whatever ability to, then put yourself in position where we can be that arriving officer. And that's the biggest thing that when it came for me even going into law enforcement, why when you hear about people who are trying to just get in, they like are doing these like shotgun applications to everywhere because they're just trying to get in. It's specifically why when it came for me, New Haven was the only place I put an application in for, because it was where I had an invested interest. That town shaped and made the person that I am. And if I ever had to pay the ultimate price that law enforcement would have to pay, then at least it would be for my hometown that shaped and bred this man right here. Yeah. And so that's what is a help. It's not an end-all solution by no means. Don't get me misconstrued. But that's what I think is going to be a piece to happen when you have that question like you posed, Eddie. Like how are you going to have individuals who roll up and, like you said, the person is of color, and how can this happen where they can't walk out and, you know, whether they're unarmed altogether, or why they can't just be, you know, directed to put the gun down and then be arrested safely in handcuffs? Okay, is oftentimes it's the people who are arriving have this off the rip, you know, disposition regarding people of color or whatever it is. Who knows? In those cases where they end up on the news or on TV, it's because these people are coming from God knows where, you know, 45-minute drive out of town, where who knows? They see about 5 people of color in their communities, maybe, right? It's maybe not even a thing. Who knows? But we need those people in our community to be able to at least have, it's our actionable item. Again, don't get me confused. It's not a solution to everything, but it's something, it gives us something to do. And if it's just a little bit, Why not? If because at this point, like we're otherwise we just sit here and lay over, man, and roll over to like we're really gonna just wait to the powers that be or this grand government of power structure to decide that our black lives are worth the same as a white life? Are we gonna just wait for that?
Yeah, that's definitely not gonna happen. So I got a question though. So, and I hear this all the time, and I get this question all the time from people who have no clue about what it is that we do when it comes to firearm instructing, law enforcement, so on and so forth. So this question is, do you believe that taking firearms is the solution to stopping mass shootings? And I can't wait to hear, and I can't.
Here's what I'll say, right? And I'll put it as simple as I do for participants of the class, right? Of the classes that I teach. It's just like, if you think you're going to take an 8-hour basics of pistol permit course, go through the process and get your firearm, that's going to be enough to save your life. God forbid you ever placed in a position where you have to utilize it. You're a fool. There's a lot of training. There's a lot of time that you have to put into it, right? Not only educating yourself in terms of how to properly use a firearm, but the laws that are set in place. You get what I'm saying as it relates to self-defense. Having that firearm doesn't mean anything if you don't even know how to apply it. So it's just like, again, that 8-hour course isn't going to save your life. Having that firearm isn't going to save your life. Knowing how to use it, constantly training, understanding the laws that are in place, and more importantly than all that, having some sense of like common sense, which we all know isn't common, right? If you have the opportunity to put yourself in a safe position, remove yourself from whatever that situation is, do that. Create distance as opposed to trying to engage a threat to that extent, because ain't no sense in doing that if you're outgunned.
So taking all the guns away, is that the solution?
How is it the solution? The guns are going to be around regardless, right? Whether you take
my point exactly.
Guns are going to be around regardless. I think
my point exactly.
And proper training is key.
Absolutely. The reason why I asked that question and I wanted to actually bring that up is because I'm not sure if you guys saw the interview of the black guy who was being interviewed at the actual scene on the news. They asked about the whole gun situation, and he actually stated the same exact thing that we kind of stating now, is the simple fact that it's not, in a nutshell, it's not the guns, but it's the people who have the, meaning the mental stability of those who are carrying certain guns. So the reason I wanted to touch on that is because we already know, we're instructors, and that's why I wanted to jump on that. We already know that this is about to be one of those situations where they start harping on all these different type of gun laws, trying to strip away law-abiding citizens of their firearms. And that's an issue for me. That's an issue, especially seeing us going into a grocery store or Walmart or any regular place and having the possibility of us being gunned down and not being able to attempt to, defend ourselves or our family. And I know right now, Chris, you just did your pistol permit stuff, right?
Yeah, I just got it again. I let it expire.
All right. So how would you have felt about that situation, right? Being that you didn't have anything, how would you have felt about that situation had this been a situation you were in, not being able to have your guns and they take them away from us and something like this happens?
I'd be highly pissed off.
Highly pissed off.
But that's the thing too. Like to partially to Joe's point is having the proper training is definitely key, right? Because if I just have the access, right, without the training, I could be as equally harmful to anybody around me, just like the mass shooter.
You would have been assisting him. Exactly. You would have been assisting him.
if not harming, shooting my dang self, trying to, you know, use something, or harming somebody else who's innocent, because I I don't have, you know, focus and control, or, you know, the proper training or whatever of the firearm like this, you know, so that all those things are important, and it's more important for those powers that be that end up trying to, you know, shape new laws and take those, you know, kind of guns and rights away from law-abiding citizens. It's really scary to think you can end up being a law-abiding citizen, an individual in a setting like that, and having the proper training, but now having your access restricted and gone because now fear has been the thing that has controlled and guided direction of new legislation. And
Yeah.
so now it's like we're sitting ducks now, which is
Yeah,
why
yeah.
to my which is
We'll
why I
say
said
it
to
all
my
the time.
point, which is why to my point is I am now watching this thing on the news that day, and I'm in my head going,
Here comes the talk.
what do I say to my family, and how do I prepare them? Like, when I tell you, literally, bro, I was legit almost taken back, surprised by how it was impacting me, and because I think the reality of it was really hitting me. I don't know if ever, I'm sure it has had to be happened before, or when maybe it wasn't recent, but maybe it was like too far back in the past. But I don't recall another incident of a mass shooting in a grocery store that I caught, that I was
me
aware
neither.
of.
Yeah, me
Yeah,
neither.
so I think maybe it was because it was the grocery store that made it that much more emotionally,
The
like,
most
Well,
normal
I
place
think everyone
that you
would
would
say the
go.
same thing a few years ago, saying, "Hey, I don't recall another mass shooting in a church." You get what I'm saying? But
Or school, or elementary school.
exactly, it's
Yeah.
I don't think there's any place that's necessarily deemed safe anymore. And in terms of this specific situation, we can't forget this individual's intent, which was to drive into a predominantly Black area, right? Populated by people of color, and gun them down, commit that type of harm towards that community. That was his sole intent. I mean, just like the Charleston church shooting, that was Dylan Roof's intent, to go in there to commit harm to a group of people because he had some type of animus towards them, you know?
but
Bro,
but that's what I'm saying with the grocery store thing, man. It's the place that I'm at the grocery store with my family more than church, bro. You know what I mean? So it's not even that the church thing wasn't like a shock to me and it hit me hard, but it was like where do I feel the most vulnerable and with like out here with my family the most? And that's the grocery store, bro. Any other thing like little pit stops here or there, I go by myself, or me and my wife just go. And when it's grocery shopping time, man, the whole tribe out, bro. The whole tribe out here, man. And I'm
yeah,
like,
that's family time
like
right there.
put me in any of these situations, mass shooting locations, by myself and with no firearm. And me, just my personal just degree of comfortability I am with myself, I'm good. In my mind, even if I sound crazy, I could work. I could work my way around. I'm getting out of there. I got that just much tenacity for self-preservation in life, and just with other training that I got of just being aware of my surround. I got me. In the grocery store, man, I got my son. He done drifted off to the daggone Hot Wheel aisle. My daughter, she in the next aisle. Kids just roaming. You know, we ain't always all together. Let me hear pop, pop, pop off in the distance somewhere in that store, man.
Yeah, bro.
What's crazy is that I don't know the time difference in the part, but there was another mass shooting in an Asian church, which was also a hate crime.
Oh, I
think
haven't seen that one.
it was the day after.
The day after
The
this
day
one?
after, right? California. Yeah, there's another one,
Wow.
right? And so when I'm telling students about situational awareness, and I put it out plenty of times, a gun's advantage is distance. in Frii, you have your background in martial arts, and everybody may have their different levels of degree of self-protection or self-defense, hand-on-hand combat. But if I say anything, is don't run, right? You're gonna lose. You're gonna lose. If any situation when someone's attacking you with a gun, unless you got a clear advantage of speed and barriers and obstacles, is like that Asian guy did. I don't want to misspeak and say the wrong ethnicity or the wrong race, but I know he was of Asian descent, was to go towards the gun person. And somebody might have to sacrifice, but a lot of people live because he attacked.
They do teach you that too. Yeah.
Yeah, you go forward, right? And somebody's gonna take an L, but we all lose if we all running, because then we're exposing our back and with no defense. And it's not to say that what the people did in Buffalo was different, and because it could have happened in Texas, it could have happened in Utah, it could happen in anywhere that's pro-gun. The difference is when you're in a pro-gun state and you have people that's more likely to be armed, when a bullet's coming back towards you, you have a distraction, which therefore more time is given to those lambs, those sheep, to get away, while the sheepdog is protecting the sheep from the wolf. And exactly what he was. He was a cowardly wolf, knowing that you're in a state that doesn't allow their citizens to carry guns concealed. And so you're going to have a massive amount of people that are all prey. You're a savage. It's like the fox or the wolf going into the den and just having away with all the chickens they want, because there's no one there to protect the chickens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. 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 Wow.
Yo.
Well, I know what I have to say. God.
I tell you, man, when it sounds crazy to me even coming out my mouth, but I'm telling you, later that day, which is why you saw in our group chat, when y'all mentioned this talk, I was going ham because I was already planning. Listen, I was already planning to reach out to the both of you. I'm talking about to the degree I'm seeing the visions in my mind of the training, of getting you both at a location, cone setup, makeshift aisles, the whole 9 yards, to provide training for us and our children and our families to do mock scenarios of being in grocery stores now, and how we can use, things like, just like how they tell you to teach your kids in your home fire drill. Practice training.
Yep.
Mass shooting drill training for us and our children if you're in places like a grocery store. I'm dead serious. That's what was going through I'm telling you, Eddie, the cones lined up in my mind. I could draw you a picture. I'm like, this is pathetic. It's scary, but this is exactly now
something that got to get done though.
This is the new kind of training I need to tell Andre and Eddie about, that we need to start trying to put this together, man. Seriously, for our families. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You want to know what's crazy? I've shot with Eddie, of course, and I shot with Joe. If I was to ever do a training to that capacity, just so that I need people like both Eddie and Joe to help me remain emotionally regulated, right? Not only they skill set as firearm instructors, and I've seen that, but PTSD. How many times growing up in our inner city classrooms were we subjected to watch movies of our ancestors being annihilated, being hung, being cut? And so when I saw this on the news, it triggered. There was a response, and it didn't ruin my trip, but it definitely at that moment put a awful taste in my mouth because of the motive. The motive is barbaric. The motive is genocide. Granted, him himself is not capable of doing that to our race, but that's what your ideology is genocide. You want to annihilate a race because you are afraid of it. And so if I'm training people that look like me for a situation that we just seen on the news, it's going to provoke PTSD. We could talk about PTSD because we are the one group when it comes to Black men that get dismissed when it comes to talking about the PTSD that we experience in our communities. And not only from, gang violence, but even encounters with law enforcement officers, where I tell my students all the time, I was 2 blocks away from my house in New Haven. I had my pistol permit. I thought I was being a good citizen by disclosing the fact that I was legally armed. And when I tell you that I was treated like the criminal, when I was handcuffed, when I was set back in the car, when I watched 2 officers try to manipulate my gun and not know what they were doing, right? When you as a trainer and someone who's an advocate, someone who's an enthusiast, I have experience with a lot of platforms as far as firearms. These officers a lot of times only have experience with their sidearm, and therefore you're now manipulating a gun that you have no idea, and now you're talking to me as if I've committed a crime. You have me handcuffed, sitting on the sidewalk, then put me in the back of the car and tell me that you're detaining me, which I guess rightfully so, while you sit there and run whatever you have to run, as if my pistol permit was gone. I've never seen in the 15 to 20 years that I've been doing this, someone say that they got a fake pistol permit. I've never seen someone buy a gun with a fake pistol permit. So you think I'm just walking around New Haven and I've got a pistol permit and that it's going to be fake? I've seen a fake ID, not a fake pistol permit. Please tell me where you can find a fake pistol permit.
They said you.
I think it's unfortunate, man, because it's just like I think every one of these situations are a bit triggering, right? Every one of these mass shootings are a bit triggering. But I think what makes this one different, obviously, is the fact that we all know at this point that it's racially motivated, right? That was the sole motive behind it. I guess my question is, like, what do y'all feel as if there's anything that could be done to change that? Because again, I don't know what conversations were being had at the dinner table. I don't know what conversations were being had within his social circle or on whatever social media platforms he was on. But it's just like, do you think there's anything that could be done to change what's in, the hearts and minds of some people out there? And if so, cool. But if not, what could be done, to combat that?
I'm gonna let one of y'all see, because mine is not gonna be.
I know it's a loaded question. I know it's.
Listen, I don't want to start preaching though. You know what I'm saying?
You need it to be asked.
I'll preach. I'll start.
You know what I'm saying?
Listen,
Chris already.
We have to. I think the biggest thing is, at least for me and mine's, is do the best to resist that thing called fear. Because to Andre's point, you made an excellent point that I don't know if the rest of you guys caught, when you said that it's not like that one person could effectively cause genocide, right? It's not that way. And for me, the bigger picture is not genocide by way of a specific or certain act alone anyway. And I think everyone, or the powers that be, whatever, people want to call it the 1% or whatever, they know that. But the thing that's going to cause genocide even faster than a mass shooter is fear.
Yeah.
Fear will ultimately be the thing that will be our undoing. And whether that becomes at this micro level, fear of guns. Maybe it's fear of guns. So that's a start. That's the beginning. That's a fear that will spread through every culture, race, community, everywhere. And with that, it'll bring the unjust legislation, right? And then now past that, Dre also mentioned the PTSD, right? Again, how does that fear of not knowing who might come run up in our classroom or school, because now the schools are getting threat. My who I don't know if somebody was talking to my wife. I was over listening to one of her calls. She was saying her friend, wherever they live, after the New York shooting, 3 schools. Oh yeah, it was a friend of ours, our photographer friend that is from Buffalo, New York, actually. 3 schools she heard from her friends' kids shut down, like closed for like 2 days. So now you got fear doing that to the kid's mind. So now little black girl, little black boy in school trying to focus and concentrate, where let's not even get into education and the issues with that for educating our minorities, right? Now I can't focus because now I got that fear of somebody going to potentially run in here into the schoolhouse. So education gets splintered. Now I go to church where I grow and develop my spirituality. I now bring my fear to that place. So now I cannot even, grow and develop spiritually because I got that on my mind.
Yeah.
In any other facet or location that has been tainted or attacked with this ideology, Dre, how you said it, with this hate for black people, none of these individuals know, they all know they individually are not going to just get rid of mass exterminate black people by their acts. But what is known is that their individual acts, especially by the good old help of the media news, will have their act spread wildfire fear across the entire nation. The entire country is aware of that incident in New York and Buffalo. So that shooter, he didn't get to touch this state, that state, and shoot anybody and harm all the black people in those states. But all those states and those black communities in those respective states were all stripped and rippled through fear.
Big fact.
Why is the response to that fear is to remove the gun rather than empower those individuals, right? Because this is,
we always question that, man.
This is gonna hurt me. Why does our government hate us, right? Why does America hate us, right? This is what I'm saying. Why would you, after watching us be massacred, tell us that your solution to the hatred is to tell us we shouldn't arm ourselves? You weren't there to protect us. You weren't there to stop this coward, this diabolical monster, this demon-possessed individual from creating carnage amongst people that look like me. But yet your response is to tell me to rely on you. You weren't there. I don't know the response time.
And you never will be there.
Right.
Never will be.
You were minutes away when I needed you in seconds.
And it only takes seconds.
And I can't tell it. Yeah, I can't live with that. You were minutes away when I needed you to be there in seconds. And since you can't promise me that you'll be there, this is not Minority Report, right? You're not in no way gonna be there before the crime. So why would you tell me to not have the one thing I know, the one weapon that's known to man to equalize a threat with a gun is a law-abiding person, someone who's going to stand up righteously with a gun.
Oh my God, bro! You said a mouthful.
So that's why. That's why I feel I don't want to use the word hate. I know I use some real colorful words, but I feel like you don't like me. I feel like you don't like me. If you're telling me to sit there and be victim, you don't like me. You might not hate me, but you don't like me. You don't really care for my well-being if you're telling me not to be able to defend myself.
Listen, because at the end of the day, right, the deeper revelation, Dre, is that it's not in their interest to save your life. Your life is of only value to you and the people that love you, Dre. Right? You know what I mean? And I think that's what for those who, get into politics and are educated in those spaces, that's why I advocate for those people to, continue to take it further, because somebody who, whatever's going to be your hill to like die on, right? Like everybody's got the cause that they're going to, take, what I mean? And just for me, politics is not it. But for those who it is, like, it's because for the powers that be that control the letters of the law, the color of that power is white. And I don't like to use terms. I'm trying to like, beat around and just phrase it a different way. I don't like using terms like, white man or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's this, individual.
It is what it is, Chris.
You know what I mean?
It is what it is.
No, because I don't like the same thing done to us. So I try to be fair in that
True.
respect. You know what I mean? That all white people are not the devil. You know what I mean? The devil isn't white. You know what I mean? Things like that. But I'm saying the powers that be, the majority that shape these laws, and how you said, Dre, how come? Why is the response to take guns away from us law-abiding citizens? Is because, Dre, there's no real value in your individual Black life or the collective Black life. You know what I mean? Like that. At the end of the
Bro,
day,
that sounds so bad.
It sounds
so
bad, but
bad.
that's what my
no, but that's what it is, though. That's my opinion too, though.
I remember hearing this once, right? And again, after every one of these shootings, you hear the gun control rhetoric coming up, and it seems to be the same talking points each and every time, right? But it's just like when you talk about, gun control versus your Second Amendment right, you talk about gun control, it's not about guns, it's about control, right? You want to control a certain population of people. Whereas when you talk about your Second Amendment right, you're talking about your rights. So I think that's where the two clash, when we're trying to have these debates. There's always these talks of like common sense gun control measures, and it's just like, if I'm always here to have a conversation and hear someone out, but again, I don't think legislation is the issue here. I think it should be more of education as opposed to legislation.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because at the end of the
agree.
day, it's not the people, for the most part, who are it's not the people who are law-abiding citizens that need to be sort of like, corralled or impeded in a way, right? It's we're trying to have the law work for us so we could protect ourselves from these things, the mass shootings that you're afraid of, that you're seeing on the news. By putting us in a position where we can't have access, your otherwise sound mind, law-abiding citizen, Black or white, doesn't matter, where they can't have access to protect them. Like, Dre, that was a whole bar, bro. That was a whole bar, man. I'm about to have to write that and put on a t-shirt.
I thought that Drew was about to spit a whole 16.
You were only minutes away when I needed you in bro.
In
That's
seconds,
a bar,
bro. A whole bar, yo.
Fire bar. I've never heard that like that, but that's exactly
That's
it.
the truth, though.
Minutes away. You might as well be hours away if I need you in seconds. It don't matter. They used to train us like that in the police academy, man. When it came time for hands-on, training, they put you on your back in full uniform so you could have the whole body weight of the uniform, and put another officer and straddle their legs on top of you and start on your back and blow the whistle and start the timer. And that timer was to go for 90 seconds.
Up from 90 seconds feel like 20 minutes.
For 90 seconds to basically give you the idea that in the city, and Joe, I feel for you because state PD, you gotta last a lot longer for your backup to come. But for the city cop, they're like, listen, I'm gonna blow this whistle. The officer who's on top, you continue to pummel, open palm, pummel the officer who's on their back, and the officer who's on their back on the mat job is to get up off their back. And you got 90 seconds because on average, that's how far away your backup is. You at least If the fastest your backups can come in a city, district is 90 seconds away, your nearest officer. And so that's what it is. But does that matter? Even that fast? Does that even matter? That I could get to you in a minute and a half if that gunman is shooting seconds, mowing down people by the seconds.
Yeah.
You know what's disgusting? And Frii, you can appreciate this because you're a master of words. I listened to, I can't remember her name and it's not important, but the politician got up there and said that there's no reason for our citizens to be armed. And so if our citizens are not armed, then who are armed? Our military and law enforcement? Are our military and law enforcement, when they're off duty, not regular citizens, civilians? What I needed to hear you say, if you're going to say anything that's very powerful and poetic, there's no reason for any human being to have a gun. If you're going to go that road, because then why does the White House security need a gun? Then how come the governor private security has a gun, right? Don't say citizens as if we're irresponsible or that we're animals that we need to be tamed and controlled. That's not why our Constitution, that's not why our democracy was created, to put us in control, and we select these individuals to play puppet masters with our lives. A well-regulated militia is what our forefathers put in front because of the tyranny of what you're saying it blatantly. There's no reason for you to. So for what? Then who? Again, when I need you in seconds, your responses in minutes. I don't need you. I need you to write the report.
Yeah, another one Joe can appreciate. What they teach us, Joe, when they teaching us the 9 principles of law enforcement that Robert Pill came up with. One of the biggest, dopest principles is for law enforcement to remember, the people are the police and the police are the people.
Wow.
That's what is supposed to be at the core of the foundation of this thing. So that's crazy to hear somebody say or suggest there's no reason for the citizens or civilians to be armed. The civilians are the police. The police are civilians. And when you try to make that distinction, now you give it a reason for there in the community to be that us versus them mentality.
Again, all that sounds good when you are maybe in a position where you could afford armed security and all that. But for the regular, common Joe, just going to work, going to pick up their kids, going to and from, and are faced with these violent acts, they unfortunately don't have that security to rely on. And again, first responders are there, but again, like you put it, I need you in seconds, and you're there in minutes. So it doesn't change the fact that I need you well before this thing happened and coming in after the fact. So we do have to put ourselves in a position where we could, best defend ourselves in these types of situations. But again, simply having a gun isn't going to be it,
Yeah. So what do we
comes down to training. You have to be, and it's a personal decision that you have to make as an individual, right? Is my life worth protecting? Absolutely. And if so, what can I do to put myself in the best position to protect myself and my family? You get what I'm saying? Again, the resources are out there. The resources are certainly out there, but what are you doing to go after them?
Yeah, I'm hoping that this changes the minds of many people, man, and not just for the second, because we all know that things that happen like this, it changes people's minds and hearts for a moment, and then it goes right back to the norm. But I'm hoping something like this, so traumatic that happens, I'm hoping that it changes people's mindsets on how they move and how they act and how they, view protection and safety. Like I said before, we're all instructors aside from Chris. So this is definitely going to impact how I teach. Not that I wasn't teaching it, great to begin with, in my opinion, you know what I'm saying? But it's definitely going to change how I teach things, and pretty much presenting more maybe tactical scenario trainings. And like Chris was saying, I'm going to probably now promote more of that now, because that's standing behind the line, being accurate at a target that ain't moving. That ain't real. You know what I'm saying? You can do that all day. That's not real, man. You getting our heart rate pumping, you getting our adrenaline going, and you getting that little fear in your body, and you still being able to move and be accurate and shooting from different positions. That's more realistic, and that's something that I'm definitely going to implement into a lot of my training now.
Chris, you and I had a discussion, and I don't know if you want to disclose it now, your experience. But prior to me diving into that, one of the things that I've always tell my students is that there's three. I don't care what your faith is, you're religious, if you believe in a God or if you don't, you're granted right as a human being is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Right? Without those three things, life is miserable, right? If your liberty is taken away from you, if you're enslaved, if you're captured, or if you're whatever, there's no freedom. If you don't have the ability to make your life better, then you might as well be in a cage. But Chris, you and I, we spoke not too long ago, and we was talking about the simulations training and why that level of training is so important versus just going to a range and shooting at paper. And you took it as a law enforcement officer. And the reason that I wanted to bring it up was because you was like, da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, because no one thought of doing this. So I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that, if this was the time or the place to for you to disclose.
It's definitely the time and the place, man. It's definitely the time and the place. I think that's definitely going to be something that I'll look into, because I've never done it before.
Yeah, nah,
So,
that's definitely, bro. Before you even said that, I was literally thinking in my head, I'm like, yo, how could we, maybe for people who are back to me and your podcast, Dre, where we talked about overcoming fear, right? How you have to start slow with some individuals when it comes to firearms, right? So I'm trying to think in my head, piggybacking off of you, Eddie, like talking about incorporating certain trainings, like, yo, we might have to, I'm like, yo, how can we simulate some scenarios with just using maybe Nerf guns? I'm big on Nerf, Eddie. Like, my family loves playing with the kids with those. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, but just to get the brain kind of like growing in the right direction, as far as training or whatever. But to your point, Dre, like, yeah, no, the simulations training, that training is so important for letting you, the individual, know, whether you're in the professional realm as a law enforcement or not, let you know what you're capable of, not even like worded that way, what your body and mind will do in a real life situation,
or as close to real life as
close, exactly, right? Because I've heard people, and especially the group of officers who went through the simulations training with me, it's funny because at the time I actually did that training, I had never been paintballing, never. But a lot of the officers who were in the training, they had, and a lot of them were being cocky about, oh yeah, I heard this is just like paintball, man. I'm straight. I'm gonna be all right, whatever. Man, when I tell you, them officers was coming out in black and blue ways like they ain't never felt before in their life, and they was saying how, bro, this is anything but paintball. Like, when I tell you the two shots that I took and caught with that simulations, one being my right butt cheek and the other one being, thank God, my helmet, but otherwise I would have not gone home that night, is that the adrenaline spike that happened to my body when I felt that munitions hit my behind was unlike anything I felt in my. And now, mind you, this coming from a young black kid too, grew up old school. Man, listen, when it come to the behind, I done been whipped with extension cord, hanger, switch, but I have never felt nothing. And subsequently, and even when I went to go play paintball and was hit, nah, multiply what you feel with paintball hitting your skin, multiply that times 3. I'm talking about people came with a part of their skin cracked, slightly bleeding, which is why they allowed us as officers going through it to just have headgear. But nothing else though. We had no other protection, only headgear. So, and we had our obviously regular standard law enforcement, uniform. So we had our vests, but your arms, your thighs, your legs, your back, with anywhere else, it was fair game, bro. And that thing.
Yo, you ever did that?
Yeah.
That mess
So
let me realize.
in regards to simulation training, right? I feel like it's great. There's a lot that can be learned from it, but there's also a lot that has to take place beforehand. You get what I'm saying? So I was having a conversation with one of my bros a few days back, and again, after every incident like this, people always want to ask about tactical training, right? Thinking that that's going to make a difference if you're ever presented with that type of threat. And it's just like, I was trying to explain to him, there's a lot that goes into
a whole lot
before you even get to some tactical type training. Like the simple act of drawing from a holster, dry firing, doing that consistently. You get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Understanding the difference between cover and concealment. Like these are things that you have to constantly like run in your head or constantly do to build upon. So it's just like, simulation training is amazing, right? It's great, but there's so much that could be done even prior to set you up for success. And I feel like, again, because it's not the fun thing to do, because you're not actually firing rounds, or it's overlooked.
That turns so many people down, yo.
Yeah, going to the range is great, right? It's fun.
That's boring. That's boring, Joe.
Into the last hole is an amazing
feeling. That's corny,
but
Joe.
You know what's crazy? That target isn't moving. That target isn't shooting back. You get what I'm saying? You're already at an advantage because that gun is already drawn. You get what I'm saying? You're already in a perfect stance. So what happens when you can't have that stance? What happens when you get what I'm saying? There's so many outside so many outside factors that play into these like use of force situations, but also so much that you could do at home, in your basement, in the bathroom, by yourself. To set you up for success. Like, but again, it's not fun.
Yo, that's why people get mad at me when I turn them down, when they want to get out there and do moving and shooting, and I tell them no. They get so mad, y'all.
Like,
because it's so much more. With a 22 caliber, you can't even shoot in the same hole with a 22 caliber 10 feet away, but you want to go move and shoot. Absolutely not.
Dry firing is boring.
Dry firing is boring.
Oh, shut up, yo.
And I'm not just being devil. It is boring, right? But it's the same reason why Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and all of them, you're shooting the ball inside of a hoop with no defense. Yeah. What's his name? Steph Curry. You're practicing. Who in their right mind, as an athlete, not at his level, would ever thought like, I'm just going to practice shooting from half court over and over again until you do, right? And then that's why dry firing is so important. I had a student tell me, I thought all you had to do is look at the target and point the gun, and I was going to hit it.
You watch too much
when
movies.
I looked at him,
way too many movies.
I'm like, better yet, let's not even say movie, Call of Duty.
Oh,
that's what he was referring to. Call of Duty, and what's the other one? There's another one that's real popular that you just put the dot on whatever you want to shoot it, and you press X, A, B. But I don't know the buttons. Y'all know the buttons. Triangle.
He had the Call of Duty automatic target locator on, yo. You You just point in a general direction,
yo.
and then lock on the target.
I'm in the process of manufacturing one of those. When I get it out to the public, the first ones to get to sample it.
Yeah.
But listen, bro,
funny,
I'm actually gonna have to step out a bit earlier than I wanted to. But before I leave, I definitely, and I hate saying this after every one of these incidents, sending out thoughts and prayers to the families, because it's just like these are incidents that shouldn't have happened in the first place. But I also don't want to forget the fact that, again, this individual went into a predominantly Black and brown area to commit these acts of violence. And don't forget that a majority of the people that were targeted, I think 9 out of 10 were over the age of 50. So presumed to be, weak and defenseless. I think one of them were 32, but all the others were 50, 60. I think one might have been in her early 80s. Again, these are individuals that are seen as weak and defenseless. So
That's
I don't
crazy.
know. I feel like, things definitely have to change, and I don't know what it is, but remember, we all have to make the decisions to want to, protect ourselves, protect our families, and take it from there.
Well, I
Training is key.
appreciate you, one, Joe, for just being that particular voice, so that it could echo outside of just myself, outside of just Dre or whatever, and Eddie. Thank you also for your continued service.
Thank you, sir.
Always praying that you continue to be safe, man, and continue to be one of those voices that also just try to encourage our other, Black and brown, fellow brothers and sisters, man, to consider it,
Yeah.
consider the position, the job, you know what I mean? So that it could be an actionable item, something for us
Absolutely.
to do.
Absolutely. But listen,
Joe, before you
that's your IG
Joe, before
handle?
you go.
All right, perfect. I got to touch base with you.
Before you go, Joe.
Yes,
before you go, what I want to do in honor of those 12, I want to say it was 12, 10 people who were killed and died, but 12 wounded. So in honor of those 12 individuals, can we do 12 seconds of silence in honor of those individuals? So those was the 12 seconds of silence, and to the sacrifice that those individuals had to pay, that our culture and our people had to endure and witness publicly. I'm starting to get emotional, so I'm gonna stop there and allow someone who's able to express and articulate themselves during this moment to interject.
Nah, I respect it, man.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate you guys inviting me over. And again, condolences to the 10 lives lost, the 10 families affected during this time, and overall the 12 people that were injured as a result of the incident. But again, I appreciate y'all, brothers. I appreciate y'all for having me.
Hey, we're gonna wrap it up anyway, man.
Continue to do, continue to be great, man.
Yeah, time to wrap it up, man.
Absolutely.
So listen, yo, I do appreciate you guys for jumping on with me, man. We definitely, everybody got their own families, and we got other things we could have been doing, but this topic right here needed to be touched. It definitely sparked something in me as well as you guys, and we gotta get up, man. We gotta do something outside of this. So appreciate you guys, and you guys have a blessed night, man.
You as well, brother.
We're gonna do this again, man.
Absolutely.
All right, ASMS.
Later, bro.
Yes, Bullseye, A.S.M.S. Frii. We'll be seeing you all soon. Speak to you.
All right, peace, fellas.